The South African Football Association says it didn't have funds to pay a $10 million bribe to FIFA officials in exchange for votes to win the World Cup bid. That's according to Raymond Hack, the body's former CEO. He joins us on the line now. Mr. Hack, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, all these allegations are tarnishing the reputation of South Africa as a football nation. Where do you go from here?
Well, obviously, allegations have been made. Those allegations have to be proven. As it says, I mean, the story that South Africa sent a suitcase of money, to a hotel. I mean, I've never heard of it. We certainly never sent anybody to go and take a suitcase of money. And the figures that are being mentioned, $10 million US, which convert that to our currency is 100 million rand. Now, my total sponsorships during that period didn't even come to 100 million rand. And there's no ways that I or anyone at the South African Football Association or the bid committee signed a check or signed some type of payment or received payment for 100 million rand to go and be given to somebody in a hotel room. I mean, we're talking in 2004, supposedly bribing one man, Mr. Warner. To the best of my knowledge, there were 22 or 27 executive members who had to vote on South Africa's proposal. South Africa put a proposal before the FIFA executive for the 2006 World Cup, which we believe we should have got. And if you'll recall, on that particular day in question, when the vote was done, the gentleman by the name of Jack Dempsey reneged on the mandate which was given to him. And the vote subsequently went to Germany, and they hosted a very successful World Cup. South Africa in 2010 hosted what I consider the best World Cup ever hosted, despite all the criticism that South Africa had to endure beforehand.
Mr. Hack, so you deny any wrongdoing, but let me just ask you this. Has the Department of Justice been in touch with you? Have they talked to you? Have they called you? Have they asked for...
No, we've never spoken to. I'm not aware. Look, I haven't been the CEO for the last 5 years, but our books are open for inspection. It's a public an organisation where we do an annual audit. Our membership sees it. We've never had 100 million rand or $10 million. We've never been contacted. I'm not aware of anyone being contacted. If they have, they certainly haven't advised me. So, I can't tell you what Mr. Warner said or he didn't say. I think I met him once in my life.
This is damaging, though, the legacy of the World Cup.
Yes, most certainly it's damaging because, as we say, we believe we hosted the best World Cup. Everybody was skeptical about South Africa's ability. We were told we weren't ready as Africa, and we proved we were ready. And, for these allegations, I can't comment. All I can say is I can tell you that the South African Football Association never paid anybody.
But what I don't understand, and I know these are allegations at this point, as you say, but have you spoken to some of the, the officials currently in their jobs at the South African Football Association? The Department of Justice usually does their work correctly. So, is there? You say you haven't been contacted. You say they haven't tried to call you. Have they tried to call anyone else at the South African Football Association? Would you comply with the investigation? Give me a little bit of, what's the next step from here?
Well, I haven't heard anything. I mean, the first anyone ever heard of this was when it broke yesterday. We certainly, or I certainly haven't been in contact with anyone, and I haven't heard anyone say to me, listen, can you disclose what was in the financial statements? I mean, our books are there. How this is allegedly done, I can't tell you. I have no idea. Never heard of it.
All right. Does FIFA need a change at the top?
Sorry?
Does FIFA need a change at the top?
Well, it's not for me to say. Let me give you an analogy. If something goes wrong in your organization in Bloomberg, the chief executive officer or the president has to take responsibility for what goes on. I think Mr. Blatter correctly initiated this investigation after the Garcia report, to the best of my knowledge, and he's doing it. Whether you like the man or you don't like the man is immaterial. It's the organization belongs to the people. You are the guardians of that particular sport. And if something is wrong, then it's up to Mr. Blatter to fix it. You can't just point out every single time something goes wrong with, say, the shop assistants and say, well, the manager, director must resign. It doesn't work like that practically. Yes, he has to take responsibility, and I believe that he's taken responsibility. But as to whether what will happen now, that's something that the members of the national associations must decide upon.
Right, but actually taking responsibility, in my mind, would be stepping down. If what you say, if we follow through your logic, if you take responsibility and you're the person in charge, then you're saying he should step down.
Well, I think, if you take that attitude, you would probably find that 90% of the CEOs of this world would have to step down at some time because their employees have done something wrong. If you can resolve the issue and you can ensure that it doesn't happen, then I believe you're doing a good job. Also, you have to look around and say, well, who is the successor there? You can't just go and put anybody into an organization that doesn't have the culture or doesn't understand the what has to be happened, what has to happen. The fact that a former footballer says, I want to be the president. Well, I can want to be the president of South Africa, of the USA, but it doesn't mean I'm qualified. I think what you have to do is you have to step back. You have to look at it logically and say, well, could he have foreseen this? Should he have foreseen it? And if he didn't, what steps is he going to ensure that the sport of which he has been appointed the guardian doesn't suffer again? FIFA and soccer is not the only sport that has ever come under criticism for bad administration, the same as certain governments or certain companies. But I think you have to learn by the mistakes, ensure it doesn't happen again, and put steps in place to make sure that you are able to comply with what your constituency wants.
Do you think that the vote should go ahead tomorrow? Or actually, would it be more reasonable to postpone it like many have asked?
Unfortunately, I can't comment. That's up to the national federations or the confederations to make a decision on that. They are the ones who will get all the information at the FIFA Congress, and once that information is digested, then they must make a decision. But I don't believe they must make a knee-jerk decision. They must evaluate the information that they've got, determine what is the right way ahead, and it should be done in conjunction with everybody. It shouldn't be a split. The worst thing that could happen to football at the moment, I heard the previous speaker say that UEFA may boycott the election or the Congress. That's probably, in my opinion and respectfully, the worst thing that can happen. Sit down, resolve the issue and take it. Don't throw your toys out the cot and say, because I couldn't get my own way, I'm not doing this. There's an elective process. When you participate in the sport, you agree to participate by the rules and regulations of that sport. There's a constitution. If the constitution doesn't work in your favor, you can't turn around now and say, okay, I'm not going to abide by the rules. You a party. You formed that constitution. You were party to it. You made it. Now accept the rules, and whatever the General Assembly decides, that should be the way forward. Not just that one particular confederation says A or another one says B. That's not the way to resolve disputes.
No, you're right. I mean, the problem is that I guess now these allegations are so big because, it led to suitcases, and so the scandal has grown so much that maybe something does need to happen quite quickly. Raymond Hack, let me ask you this. If Sepp Blatter was to step down, because he has been very active in Africa, would it be damaging for African football if he was to step down?
Well, it's not a question of... Sepp Blatter has always been, let's say, had a leaning towards African football because he didn't want African football to be treated as a stepchild. Whoever is head of football must treat Africa the same way as they treat everyone else. The fact that Europe may have the financial backing, Africa has the numbers there. And yes, you may be powerful tomorrow, but today, but tomorrow you may not be there. I don't say Mr. Blatter must step down or he mustn't step down. It's entirely up to him. He is the person who has been elected, and he's the person who must make that decision. But I think for federations to turn around and say, well, if you don't do this or you don't do that, we're going to boycott, that's not the way to resolve disputes. Nations, companies, everybody have rules and regulations. Abide by those rules and regulations. Sit down, discuss the matter logically. Don't say, well, I told you to do this and you didn't do that. That's not the way to do it. If there was a scandal in UEFA, Does that mean Michel Platini must step down? The answer is no. Unless he can say that he is directly responsible and he is the cause of it, that's a different story. But I think they need to discuss this matter, and I believe they will probably do it at the Congress, because that's the purpose of the Congress. And once they've done that and they come up with a feasible decision, that decision must be implemented, whether it's to go ahead or not to go ahead. That's left for them to decide. But each one of the 207 federations must have a say in that.
All right. Thank you so much, Raymond Hack there, the former head of the South African Football Association.